Welcome to Esoteric Guardian. We've explored fragments of forbidden books on this channel, texts tied to strange rituals and hidden knowledge, but this is the first time we'll focus entirely on the most feared among them. Throughout history, certain books have been treated with caution because of how they've been used and what they represent. These texts aren't approached lightly. Those who seek them often do so with intent, aware that what lies inside may demand far more than attention. Among them, Satanic Grimoires hold a special place. Their reputation doesn't come from myth alone, but from direct association with dangerous rituals, symbolic defiance, and personal risk. Few people read them openly, and even fewer claim to understand them fully. In this video, we're going to examine the most disturbing examples, texts that continue to attract fascination and fear in equal measure. We'll explore their origins, the purpose behind them, and why they remain some of the most controversial books ever written. Let's begin. Before examining specific examples, it's important to understand what these books actually are. A grimoire is a manual intended for ritual use. These texts provide instructions for ceremonial magic, complete with invocations, diagrams, symbols, and materials needed to carry out each operation. They are written with the expectation that the reader will act, not simply reflect. Throughout history, these texts have appeared in periods and places where magic was treated with suspicion, and any association with the demonic was seen as a threat by both religious and civil authorities. As a result, many of these books circulated in secret. Some were copied by hand, others printed in small editions, but nearly all carried an aura of transgression, books that were never meant to be read openly. When a grimoire is described as satanic, it means its content focuses on rituals involving infernal spirits, acts of blasphemy, and symbolic defiance of sacred law. These books describe how to summon demons, how to create objects charged with specific intentions, and how to carry out pacts or rites that violate religious boundaries. Beyond the practical details, these rituals often serve a deeper purpose. In many cases, the goal is not only to influence external events, but to produce a transformation in the practitioner through personal challenge, spiritual confrontation, or a deliberate rejection of imposed authority. Ritual, in this context, becomes a tool for power, but also for self-definition. Not every satanic grimoire refers to the devil directly. Some express Luciferian philosophies where rebellion, personal will, and enlightenment take precedence over obedience. Others embed these ideas in layers of symbolism, allowing the practitioner to decide what each action or phrase truly means. At their core, these books provide a framework for those willing to act outside established norms, individuals who seek change through means that have long been labeled dangerous, corrupting, or forbidden. Among the grimoires associated with demonic ritual, few have generated as much unease and interest as the Grimorium Verrum or the True Grimoire. While the text claims to have been published in Rome in 1517, historical evidence points to the 18th century, likely in France or Italy. The supposed author, Alibek the Egyptian, is almost certainly a fictional name, chosen to suggest ancient exotic origins and to lend authority to a book that deals with material few dared to write openly. The structure of the grimoire resembles earlier magical texts from the Solomonic tradition, offering detailed instructions for summoning and commanding spirits. However, there is a critical difference: the absence of divine authority. Where older grimoires invoke sacred names to control demons, Grimorium Verrum omits any appeal to God. The practitioner acts alone, guided only by personal intent and the rituals contained within the text. Its hierarchy is explicit. Lucifer stands at the top, followed by Beelzebub and Astaroth. Beneath them, numerous spirits are listed with their respective roles, seals, and instructions for evocation. The rituals outlined require materials that go beyond the symbolic. Ingredients include human fat, bat feathers, and blood, substances chosen to anchor the ritual in physical transgression and to assert control through real, tangible acts. Many occultists consider this grimoire dangerous, not because of paranormal consequences, but due to the level of commitment and transgression it demands. The rituals require the practitioner to step outside accepted spiritual boundaries and to engage directly with forces that, by design, reject moral restraint. The danger lies in the act itself, in the deliberate violation of religious order, and in the psychological and social cost of choosing to pursue power through means considered profane. Grimorium Verrum is often viewed as a deliberate inversion of the Key of Solomon. In that older text, demons are controlled in the name of divine order. Here, they are summoned to serve human will alone. This reversal transforms the grimoire into more than a manual. It becomes a declaration of independence from spiritual hierarchy, where ritual is used not for devotion, but for domination. Despite, or perhaps because of, its notoriety, this grimoire has influenced both historical and modern occult movements. Its structure and approach have served as a template for traditions aligned with the left-hand path, where transgression, personal sovereignty, and ritual inversion play central roles. Its legacy continues not just in what it teaches, but in the type of practitioner it calls for, someone willing to risk more than belief. Grimorium Verrum represents a clear break from sacred authority, but it's not the only text that takes this path. Some grimoires go further, not just in content, but in how they corrupt the very structure of sacred ritual. One of the most elusive and unsettling examples is known as the Black Key of Rabosel. This French grimoire is attributed to a magician who, according to occult tradition, traded his soul for complete knowledge. The origins of the text remain uncertain. Some believe it emerged as a clandestine manuscript in the 19th century, while others argue it's a 20th century creation passed through private esoteric circles. Its authenticity is debated, but its reputation among certain practitioners remains strong. The text is cryptic, filled with inverted references to biblical scripture and distorted liturgical forms. Its language forces the reader to engage on multiple levels, combining ritual instruction with coded meaning that must be interpreted through experience rather than theory. Among its contents are formulas for creating profaned amulets, crafted through the desecration of sacred symbols. It outlines 7-day curses, each day requiring a new ritual act, escalating in complexity and risk. One section stands out: a black mass written in verse, designed to be spoken aloud in a precise rhythm, mimicking sacred liturgy but repurposed for ritual defiance. At the center of the book is the Oath of the Inverted Spiral, a ritual that marks the practitioner's departure from spiritual law and entrance into a path of isolation and personal will. The oath includes verbal formulas, specific hand gestures, and the use of an emblem, a spiral inscribed within a broken circle, drawn on the ground or upon the body. Those who engage with this grimoire describe it as a rite of initiation, not merely a book. Reading it aloud from start to finish, alone, is said to produce a shift in awareness. Some claim this process induces altered states, where the line between self and other begins to blur, and the practitioner senses a presence that mirrors their own thoughts and actions. Its influence can be traced to older grimoires, But Rabosel's work takes their structure and corrupts it more radically. It doesn't simply guide, it confronts, demanding that the reader abandon external authority in favor of direct engagement with what lies beyond. One phrase has become synonymous with this grimoire among those who know of it. Your reflection will remind you that you're no longer alone. A warning not about spirits, but about the changes that begin the moment the ritual is complete. Some grimoires stand at the margins, openly defying religion and authority with imagery that makes their intent clear. But others operate from within, using the language of faith and the structure of sacred ritual as a vehicle for something else entirely. Among these, the Book of Honorius, or Liber Juratus Honorii, is one of the most disturbing and complex. The text is apocryphally attributed to Pope Honorius III, who reigned in the early 13th century. That attribution has never been verified, yet it persists, because the content is written with a precision that suggests deep knowledge of Catholic ritual and doctrine. Whether Honorius had any connection to it remains unclear, but the association itself was enough to scandalize the Church for centuries. At its core, the Book of Honorius is a manual of high ceremonial magic, but it is unlike other grimoires of the period. The invocations, the structure of the rituals, and even the phrasing of the prayers are taken directly from official ecclesiastical formats. The difference lies in how they are used. The text retools liturgy for personal gain, not divine service. Prayers are spoken not to submit to God's will, but to command spiritual forces directly, including those traditionally regarded as infernal. One of the most unsettling features is a rewritten version of the Lord's Prayer, which no longer seeks grace or forgiveness, but power and protection in this world. The modified prayer retains the rhythm and language of the original, but every phrase is reoriented, turning a plea for divine support into an assertion of autonomous authority. This kind of inversion is not superficial. It's ritual corruption with intent. To enact the rites, the practitioner must perform consecrations in reverse, using objects normally reserved for sacred ceremony: chalices, vestments, incense, and altars. These are repurposed through detailed instructions that mirror orthodox usage, but with altered goals, each object stripped of its original meaning and re-sanctified to serve the practitioner's will. Some historians and occult scholars argue that these sections were added by heretical magicians who had access to clerical spaces, individuals who understood the liturgy well enough to invert it without attracting immediate attention. The presence of demonic invocations, the use of altered psalms, and ritual diagrams that mimic church architecture suggest a deliberate strategy to mirror the sacred as a form of domination, not devotion. Unlike openly satanic grimoires that separate themselves from religious tradition, the Book of Honorius is more dangerous because it stays close. That proximity allows it to pass as sacred in form, while being subversive in function. For practitioners already trained in religious rites, this grimoire becomes accessible, but also treacherous, because it uses familiar tools to enact transformation through defilement. The risk, then, is twofold. First, in the rituals themselves, which demand a complete inversion of intent, using sacred symbols to engage with forces traditionally viewed as corrupting. Second, in the psychological effect of turning faith against itself. Many who have worked with this text describe a gradual shift in perception, where symbols once associated with protection become tools for control, and the boundary between sacred and profane becomes unstable. This instability is not an accident. The grimoire is designed to unravel spiritual certainty, replacing it with a sense of power gained through appropriation and manipulation. It's not a call to rebellion in the open, but a ritual conquest from within, where authority is not denied, but absorbed and redirected. Its impact on later traditions is clear. Elements of the Book of Honorius appear in grimoires that explore the tension between sanctity and defilement, particularly in left-hand path traditions where inversion is central. The method of using holy ritual for unholy ends has echoed through centuries of occult practice, shaping how power is conceptualized, not as something granted from above, but as something taken through knowledge and will. Now, if there's one grimoire that has achieved legendary status, even outside occult circles, it's this one, the Dragon Rouge, also known as the Grand Grimoire. If you've heard of a book used to make a pact with Lucifer himself, this is probably the one they're talking about. Its reputation is massive. Many consider it the most famous satanic grimoire ever written. Why? Because it doesn't waste time with philosophy or ambiguous rituals. This book is about results. It lays out, step by step, exactly what you need to do to strike a deal with the devil. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but through a ritual pact sealed in your own handwriting. The structure is simple, and that's part of what makes it so effective and so feared. The grimoire divides demonic entities into clear ranks. At the top, you have the imperial spirits, Lucifer, Satanakia, names you don't invoke lightly. Below them are the subordinate spirits, like Fluidity and Nibiros, who carry out commands and enforce the terms of the pact. And yes, the book explains how to make that pact. You are instructed to construct the Circle of Domination, a ritual space that sets the boundary between you and the spirit you intend to summon. It teaches you how to call Lucifer directly, how to offer terms, and, most importantly, how to bind the demon to serve you for exactly 9 years. After that, well, that's part of the risk. What's unique about the Grand Grimoire is its tone. It doesn't try to persuade you with theology or mysticism. It speaks plainly. The pact isn't framed as an act of worship or submission. It's a contract. You ask for power. The demon agrees under strict conditions. And once the deal is made, the consequences begin. In the 19th century, occultists who worked with this book described it as the most honest grimoire they had ever encountered. One practitioner wrote, "This book does not ask for your faith. It demands a choice. Will you dominate or be consumed?" That's the dynamic. It's not about belief. It's about control, and whether you can maintain it once the ritual begins. Unlike older grimoires that veil their purpose behind sacred names or cautious invocations, the Dragon Rouge is blunt, functional, and fearless. It treats the summoning of demons as a transaction, not a mystical journey. And that's why it became a favorite among practitioners of practical magic, people who weren't looking for spiritual enlightenment, but for real-world results. Over the centuries, it has been banned, confiscated, reprinted, and passed around in secret, with countless variations and copies circulating in Europe and the Caribbean. In fact, Le Dragon Rouge became especially influential in Haitian Vodou, where it was absorbed into ritual practice and given new life as a tool of pact-making with powerful spirits. Among all the grimoires ever written, few demand more from the practitioner or expose them to greater risk than the Book of Abramelin. Unlike the infamous Grand Grimoire or Grimorium Verrum, which offer pacts and commands, Abramelin offers something radically different: a path to spiritual authority through isolation, confrontation, and inner annihilation. The book is attributed to Abraham of Worms, a German Jewish mystic from the 14th century who claimed to have received the teachings from an Egyptian mage named Abramelin. What he recorded is not a list of spells. It is a system of initiation designed to lead the practitioner into contact with their holy guardian angel, a being said to represent their higher self, divine purpose, or ultimate spiritual guide. But the method to achieve this contact is brutal. The text outlines a 6-month to 18-month ritual, and no, that's not flexible. During this period, the practitioner must live in strict isolation, following a daily regimen of prayers, abstinence, ritual purity, and meditation. No sexual contact, no alcohol, no unnecessary speech, absolute focus every day for months. The idea is to strip the practitioner of all ego, habit, and distraction until only bare consciousness remains. And here is where the real horror begins. The grimoire warns that as you progress, you will attract attention, not just from your angel, but from the forces that oppose it. Visions, nightmares, temptations, even physical disturbances. These are described not as possibilities, but as guaranteed trials. The demons that appear are not merely external. They often mirror your fears, obsessions, traumas. The ritual forces you to face them, with no protection except your own discipline. This isn't theoretical. Practitioners have reported hallucinations, disorientation, and total breakdown of time perception during the process. The grimoire doesn't offer sympathy. If you fail, you start again. If you succeed, you gain contact with the angel, but that's only the beginning. Once the angel appears, you must immediately summon and bind the 4 kings of hell, Orions, Paimon, Ariton, and Amamon, along with 12 elemental dukes and 316 spirits. Not to worship them, but to subjugate them, forcing them to swear obedience. The authority to do this comes only through the angel. Without it, the operation collapses, and many believed that attempting this prematurely would drive you insane. One of the most infamous attempts was made by Aleister Crowley, who began the Abramelin operation at Boleskine House in Scotland. He never finished. Some claim that his abandonment of the ritual and the unbound spirits left behind led to events that plagued the house for decades. Crowley's incomplete attempt became legend, a warning about the dangers of starting Abramelin without the will to see it through. What sets the Book of Abramelin apart and makes it truly terrifying is that it doesn't offer shortcuts. There are no bargains, no demonic allies, no protection spells. Just you, your mind, and the demand to confront everything you are and everything you fear. The reward is spiritual mastery, but the cost is real. People have lost themselves trying. Some books don't just teach, they test you. The Lemmergeten, better known as the Lesser Key of Solomon, is one of them. Before you ever attempt a ritual, the book starts working on you. That's what many practitioners report, a shift in atmosphere, not just physical, but mental. Reading it isn't casual. Studying the seals, repeating the names of the 72 spirits aloud, or preparing the tools can trigger restlessness, tension, and an uncanny sense of being observed. Whether that's psychological or something else, depends on who you ask. But everyone agrees, the Goetia doesn't like being ignored. What makes this grimoire terrifying isn't theatrical horror, it's the methodical precision behind it. The text offers no comfort, no spiritual guidance, no promise of enlightenment. It gives you instructions to summon, command, and bind demons, as if you were building a machine. And here's the unsettling part, it's complete. You're given the full system, the summoning circle, the triangle of manifestation, the names of God, the conjurations, and most importantly, the seals of the spirits themselves. Every detail is essential. The circle must be perfect. The words must be spoken exactly. Any hesitation, any flaw in the construction, and the spirit will resist. And that resistance is never passive. Each of the 72 demons has a function. Some offer knowledge, others wealth, manipulation, war, disease, or destruction. And once summoned, they must be forced to swear obedience, bound by names of divine authority. The magician isn't meant to negotiate. You dominate or you fail, and failure here has consequences. The text repeats it. If your will falters, if the ritual is incomplete, the spirit may refuse to leave, or worse, attach itself. Many who've tried describe paranoia, insomnia, even obsessive thoughts, as if once the name was spoken, something remained, watching. What's even more disturbing is how accessible the book is. You don't need months of preparation or oaths of secrecy, just time, willpower, and the belief that you can control what you summon. Historically, the Goetia became the foundation of Western ceremonial magic. It influenced everything: the Golden Dawn, Crowley's Thelema, modern ritual magic, even some forms of left-hand path practice. Its structure has been copied, studied, and feared for centuries. And despite this long history, the warnings never softened. Because at its core, the Key of Solomon isn't about curiosity. It's about power, and whether you're truly capable of wielding it without being consumed by it. Once the seal is drawn and the name spoken, you have to prove it. And if you can't, the book doesn't forgive. Some books carry a reputation. This one carries a warning. In Spain, Portugal, and Brazil, people don't speak lightly about the Book of St. Cyprian. They speak with caution, not because of superstition, but because of experience. Stories circulate about those who owned it, tried to discard it, or used it carelessly. And what followed? What sets this grimoire apart is its presence in daily life. It's not a rare object hidden in archives. It's still published, sold in markets, kept wrapped in cloth in personal altars, or tucked away in private collections, often accompanied by fear. Some refuse to bring it into their home. Others will use it, but under strict conditions. Its origin is complex. Cyprian of Antioch, the man, is said to have been a sorcerer who commanded demons, sought forbidden knowledge, and ultimately converted to Christianity, becoming a saint. But his book, the one he supposedly wrote before conversion, survived. Not just survived, but thrived in secrecy. During centuries of religious censorship, editions of the book were copied by hand, circulated clandestinely, or hidden within prayer books to avoid confiscation. This created an aura of something forbidden, but necessary, used by those willing to risk consequences for knowledge or protection. The content varies across regions. In Iberia, it contains spells for treasure, spirit summoning, and protection. In Brazil, the book transforms. Known as Livro de São Cipriano, it becomes a ritual manual in Quimbanda, where Catholic prayers exist side by side with invocations to Exu and Lucifer. Here, the book reflects religious syncretism, a fusion where the sacred and the forbidden coexist within a single page. An Ave Maria is followed by a curse, or a pact sealed in blood. One ritual describes how to summon the devil at a crossroads, offering a handwritten contract in exchange for wealth or vengeance. The book warns, breaking this pact will cost more than your soul. To this day, practitioners handle it with respect and fear. Rules persist. Never read it aloud at night, never leave it open, and never ignore it once it has been used. Some say the book is not passive, that it pulls attention, demands to be read, and punishes neglect. Even modern occultists and collectors report unease after obtaining a copy. Many speak of shadows moving, dreams changing, or tensions rising within days of bringing it home. The Book of St. Cyprian is not just literature, it's a ritual object, alive in the hands of anyone who opens it. And once you do, the line between user and used starts to disappear. Some grimoires command respect through sheer notoriety. Others remain in the shadows, not because they're forgotten, but because those who know them prefer silence. The Grimoire of Armadel belongs to that second group. First appearing in 17th century France, Armadel is not concerned with wealth, love, or conquest. Its rituals are laser-focused on one objective: the acquisition of forbidden knowledge, specifically the kind said to originate from angels who disobeyed heaven. And this is where things get dangerous. The spirits in this grimoire are presented without clear moral alignment. Some are archangels, others fallen beings, and several defy classification entirely. The book does not tell you whom to trust. It simply gives you names, sigils, and invocations, along with a method to contact them and extract knowledge. That knowledge might concern divine mysteries, the mechanics of the soul, or the inner workings of creation itself. But the sigils, the diagrams, are what make this book feared. Unlike other grimoires where sigils are tools, here they feel like triggers. Some practitioners report that even copying them by hand causes changes in perception, auditory hallucinations, distortions in time, and an overwhelming compulsion to continue working with them, even against one's will. The diagrams in Armadel are said to act as psychic gateways. Focusing on them during ritual, or worse, outside of ritual, can lead to what some describe as mental invasion. Thoughts begin to fragment, dreams shift, and a sense of presence emerges, something watching, but from within. Occult historians have traced many of the entities in Armadel back to the Watchers, the fallen angels from the Book of Enoch who gave humanity forbidden knowledge, metallurgy, enchantment, astrology. Their gifts led to chaos, corruption, and divine retribution. Armadel draws from that same current, offering power through illumination, but at the price of mental and spiritual destabilization. Another detail adds to the unease. The Grimoire of Armadel lacks protective structure. There are no formal exorcisms, no prayers of closing, and no warnings. You are expected to engage directly with the entities and manage the outcome alone. This absence has led many to view the book as intentionally incomplete, or worse, as a trap, a text that entices seekers of wisdom and leaves them mentally exposed. Even today, modern occultists approach it with caution. Some report long-term psychological effects, fixation, obsession with the diagrams, and a sense of mental erosion after repeated use. Others believe the book selects its readers, that not everyone who finds a copy is truly in control of how it's used. In the end, the Grimoire of Armadel isn't about demonic pacts or theatrical rituals. It's about contact with minds older than humanity and the question of whether the human mind can survive the knowledge they offer. Because understanding is not always power. Sometimes it's possession by another name. Books are supposed to be safe. You open them, read, learn something, and then close them. But the grimoires we've seen don't work that way. Once opened, they stay with you. Not physically, but in thought, in atmosphere, in the way your perception shifts after reading. These texts were never written for public use. Many circulated clandestinely, copied by hand, or buried in private collections, meant only for those willing to take real risks, not just for power, but for understanding. They offer no comfort. They demand your attention, your will, and sometimes your sanity. What makes all this even more disturbing is how easily accessible they've become. With just a few clicks, anyone can download or order grimoires that for centuries were kept hidden. Books that once terrified kings, priests, and magicians alike, now read casually on a phone screen or posted in forums. But access doesn't remove consequence. Many who read these texts seriously report dream changes, obsessions, distorted thoughts, and an unshakable sense that the book is not just information, it's a presence. A ritual doesn't need to be completed for something to start. Sometimes, just engaging with the text is enough. And that's the real risk today. Not that demons will appear in smoke, but that modern minds, so used to consuming content without consequence, forget that some ideas still carry weight. That some knowledge is not passive and never was. The grimoires survive, not because they're useful to everyone, but because somewhere, someone always opens them again. Curiosity never ends. And once you start to wonder about symbols, about names, about what else is out there, you're already in contact. Some books teach you something. These books change you, whether you believe in them or not. And once that change begins, you don't get to decide when it ends.